What up, homosexuals? It's Coach Nats. No, it's not. It's Coach Lorena, because if you don't know about my name change, I don't know where you've been. But hey, I'm here again bragging about my fucking clients because they're crushing it. So it makes it pretty easy to do the bragging. Today, I got the homosexual Kelsey. Kelsey, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Kelsey, you've been with us for a long time during different versions of the QueerGym. You've done to the programs like your ride or die, behind the scenes. You've done it all. And I am excited that you're here to kind of share your story of what your QueerGym experience has been like. So give us a little intro, who you is.
Yeah. No, I'm glad to be here. My name's Kelsey. I live in Southern Illinois. I live here with my dog, Kiefer. He likes to join me when I do things on the mat specifically. I have been with the QueerGym. It's funny you said like through many different versions of the QueerGym. It also feels like several different versions of myself too. Went through a really big job change, moved from Chicago down to Southern Illinois, just kind of really have made a lot of changes and gone through a lot of iterations, it feels like, over the several years, and keep finding myself coming back and really finding some consistency here in a way that's hard for me to get elsewhere. So that's me. I like to play music and I'm involved in the community and hang out with my dog and friends and good stuff like that.
I really appreciate what you said about, us being in this through different iterations of each other.
Totally.
I think that's special. I don't hear that quite often in the fitness world. Awesome. Well, let's jump right in. Let's give some folks a little history on how long you've been riding with us. So you joined back in December of 2022. What were you like back then before the gym?
Yeah, let's see, classic story of adult diagnosed with ADHD who probably should have known it sooner. And so one of those moments being realizing I was having a really hard time creating a consistent routine around working out, especially if that routine was something that I needed to come up with. Like I could totally, go down a rabbit hole of a bunch of different workouts I should try, a bunch of different nutrition things that might make sense. But I just found myself lacking like one or a few trusted people that could really help do the work for me. Say, if you show up and you sweat and you keep showing up, we'll tell you what to do and we'll give you advice on things like protein, which I think was one of the first things I realized, like pre-QueerGym. I was not thinking a lot about what comprised my meals or like what I really need to fuel myself. And a classic story, you start working your body harder, you start working out and you get hungrier and you need that fuel, but you also think a lot more about what form that comes in and just, making the most of like protein and things that I know are going to keep me energized. And so I found myself pre-QueerGym just lacking that structure and that consistency and just some of the basic hacks of what are some of the protein things I need in my freezer or in my fridge, just things that are so easy that I can just like make a good fueling decision rather than the mac and cheese decision that I loved to make and still occasionally love to make. But, I can understand those trade-offs. I feel like a lot better than I did in the past when I was just trying to figure it out myself.
Yeah. So before the gym, you didn't really have the structure or the knowledge to kind of comprise your workouts, your meal plans. And initially when you started, you did the coaching program. So that's where we tackle a lot of those things. And then from there, you transition into our membership where you get the workouts primarily. You know how many workouts you've done since you've been with us?
It's been a lot. I'm glad there's been a running tally because some hard days I'm like, just show up and you're going to add one more to the pile and one more to the consistency. I don't know. It's over 150, I want to say.
Yeah. So you're definitely in the 100 club. You're at 269 workouts so far.
Hey, that's dope. I love that.
So you are 30 workouts away from joining our newest club, which is the 300 club.
Incredible.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Insert applause here.
Crowd goes wild. So what was the moment for you where you're like, fuck it, I need to do something. I need to be serious about it. What was that aha moment for you?
I always liked doing sports and activities. I was never the fastest. I will say I once was like standing on, I can't remember, first or second base, and somebody who hit like a home run almost like seriously had to slow down like around third base. I love to play softball, love to do things, but just never found post like high school post rec leagues, post things where it's really easy to get together as an adult and just have fun, you know, play a round of something. And I don't want this to come across as stereotypical of our own community, but sometimes it can be hard to find, you know, a group of queer friends who wants to, I'm sorry, go to the batting cages. Is that the most lesbian thing you've ever heard? Who wants to, like, you know, mini golf is approachable, but, you know, I'm not sure that I could find some folks who are like, hey, let's go to Top Golf that also share a lot of my other interests. And to me, like, that moment was knowing I'm not going to just walk into a situation where I'm immediately in a community and active and able to kind of recapture that magic of going to PE and having to play kickball for 45 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
But when I came across, I'm pretty sure it was an Instagram ad. So thank you, Instagram ads, for something that, you know, seeing that this community exists of people that I can really identify with and that I can also show up and sweat with, you know, felt like it was, you know, tackling a couple different things in my life that I needed just to be able to sweat with the community and have that external motivation to do so.
So is the community piece of the Queer Gym the reason that it made it stick out to you a little bit more?
I love the community aspect. I think being able to see a familiar face coming when you're coming to do a plank or do a burpee, something that may not be my first inclination, but hey, I know that I have a familiar face here, someone who I've suffered with in the trenches before. I enjoy that and getting to get to know people, hear about what's going on in people's lives, see people's dogs and pets, and just get to know each other a little better. I think that's been a really cool aspect that keeps me coming back and keeps me motivated to keep showing up for each other because it's a lot easier to do some of these things when there's a group of other people putting in the work with you.
And I know one of the things that was a big impact for you in terms of staying consistent and almost banging out 300 workouts was the work from home part. I know you
Yeah.
work from home, now you're working out from home. How did that play into you being able to stay consistent?
Yeah. I found that going somewhere to work out was a big blocker for me. I know others who feel that same way, that just whether it's finding a place that really felt like worth that investment, finding a good reason to get there consistently, having a dog who would much prefer that I'm at home hanging out, lifting weights here. That just like they talk about how to build a habit and one of those things is making it easy on yourself, making it simple, removing barriers that are getting in the way of being able to accomplish that habit. And one of them for me was just getting in the dang car and turning it on and wanting to show up and go in a locker room and put on clothes and then go in a locker room and take, you know, it's a lot of rigmarole. I could do that from my house. And until I can like wall sit for 2 straight minutes, I don't necessarily need one of those machines that really, really intimidates me. That is going to, you know, probably work out something very similar, but with a lot more like learning curve and maybe intimidation.
Yeah. The convenience part. Okay, so the convenience and the community is really what has played a big part in you staying consistent so far with us.
Yeah. And, you know, learning and building that muscle memory too. I think it is really rare to find a program where you can do it from home, but somebody can watch you and correct you and keep you motivated because I tried the YouTube video thing. I so tried. And like, I'm so impressed by the people who can pull up a YouTube video and like work out with it consistently on a regular basis. Cause for me, that's hard because that YouTube video does not call me out and say, I know you can do a couple more. I know you can go a few seconds longer. That I think is really helpful and, like, you know, it's that we're in it together mentality that I can't get from some of the other kind of at-home programs, as much as I might try.
I feel you, and I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but if YouTube workout videos worked, all the other gyms would be out of business.
Seriously.
So, what changes have you seen in the last couple of years since you've been with us?
Yeah. One of the biggest things is consistency, and I tell this to newer members, which feels funny to be like a vet or something at this point, you know, giving advice to newbies that showing up is maybe more than half the battle. It's maybe like 75 or 80% of the battle. Like there have been so many days where I'm like, I do not want to do this. I'm so glad there's a small ghosting fee because there have been so many times where I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I know that if I show up within 5 minutes right after the warm up, I'm going to be like, okay, I'm glad I'm here. Like I did need this. I did need to sweat it out a little bit and just consistently being there and showing up and putting in what you can has been the biggest kind of mental adjustment for me and knowing that like that actually applies to other areas of life too. Just keep showing up and keep trying your best. I think just the way that it impacts, you know, you hate when they're right, that, gosh, working out helps me sleep better. Oh, I have more energy, but I also sleep more soundly at night. Oh, it makes me hungrier, but also more interested in fueling my body the right way. I've just found some of those things just really stack on each other in a way that makes it greater than the sum of its parts, greater than the sum of being able to do a push-up plus knowing how much chicken to eat. It's all working together and doing something pretty cool.
That's awesome. So is this the most consistent you've been as an adult when it comes to fitness?
I would say certainly the last couple years are like the most consistently I've shown up and really paid attention to myself and my fitness, which has been really cool to kind of see myself showing up in that way. There's always life stuff. Things always ebb and flow. And I think some months, some periods I do better than others. But, I certainly have seen that huge improvement from where I was 5 years ago, even a few years ago, just in that like mindset and that ability to keep showing up and that consistent muscle memory to do it right.
How does it how does how do you feel being so consistent that you're considered a veteran at the Queer Gym?
Like a lot of things at the age of 33, it's like, how could I possibly be old enough for that? But then I pause and think, oh my gosh, of course I'm old enough for that. You know, I don't mean to toot the Queer Gym horn either. I'm not getting paid for this, but to toot our own horn, something that keeps me coming back is just that I have not found a better program for me as a queer person that again allows me to remove that barrier of going somewhere else, of finding that community for myself, of coming up with my own workout plan, of searching down my own nutrition basics. I love having all those things in one program. And that's why even when I keep going through maybe life things or financial things or, kind of riding the waves of life, I find that the Queer Gym has been really solid and stable, even as the Queer Gym evolves and adds new programs and people and I love to see that too, because that's we're all growing and evolving and figuring it out together.
True that. Yeah, I mean, I have to give you so much credit in terms of you finding a way to make this work with like the changes you've been through. Cause even like I remember there was a couple times where you were traveling and you were still working out with us, joining us from wherever you were traveling at.
Right? And you can't do that at the, like, Pilates class at the gym. I'm not trying to shade any Pilates class at any gyms. Y'all are great, and truly, I envy you being able to show up and be there in person consistently, but you can't necessarily join that from a hotel room or on your phone, and that's been so cool to just, like, pull up Zoom on my phone, and I can show up and sweat. I don't need something fancy to get my heart rate up.
With the fact that the gym is virtual, sometimes people think it's hard to connect with other folks. What has been your experience connecting with other members? Have you been able to make some friends through this? Like, what's kind of the vibe there?
Yeah, I'm biased because I've worked from home since before quote unquote it was cool, but I think it is very real life, these connections that you have, the people that can show up for you and respond to your messages of I had a really good day or I had a really hard day or I hate burpees or I love burpees or I'm so glad we're doing this warm up this month or I can't wait till we move on. I think there's a lot of, commiseration but also encouragement that comes behind that and support and sometimes in some ways, I think that can be easier to do from afar, especially when I first started out. I felt very self conscious if I were to go into a gym as someone who hadn't worked out in a long time. Like, you wear out really quickly. You're following a YouTube video that's just steps ahead of where you're at. To be able to do it in your home with a supportive community where, if I need a second to recover, if I need to do a modification, if I need to do my best and then step it down, when I hit my limit, I think some of those things are easier to do when you have support through the screen, but it's not someone right next to you in a gym saying, "Hey, bro, are you okay?" Like, "I'm good. I just need a second. It's all good."
Yeah, you can always step away for a sec, catch your
Right.
breath, jump back
Just,
in.
and reorient.
What has been the toughest part of your journey?
The toughest and the most important part, consistency, I think, and kind of showing up and making that time for myself, even when it's not easy, even when there's a lot of other stuff going on. For any other neurodivergent folks who might relate, there are certain types of workouts that are easier than others. For example, it's really hard for me to like hold long positions. Like 60 seconds in a wall sit feels like not torture on the quads as much as torture on the brain. But I think the most challenging part is working through and staying positive about the exercises that aren't necessarily my favorite or I'm not natural at, and just continuing to show up even when life may be chaotic, and remembering that sweating and working out and showing up with your community tends to really help me feel lighter and less stressed and overwhelmed rather than quote unquote one more thing to add to a stressful day.
For
Mhm.
any other neurospicy queers out there, what would you like them to know about the queer gym?
I would like other neurospicy queers to know that it's okay to make things easy on yourself. It's okay to realize that showing up consistently might look different for you. It's okay to know that, while it may work for other people to work out a certain way, that it's okay to say, there's actually a ton that I can do with a yoga mat on my living room floor with, very little, if any, equipment. And it's okay to say, that's a lot easier for me than perhaps the overstimulation of making sure I have everything with me, dealing with the unpredictability of the environment at a gym. There's so much unpredictability and mental load in everyday life that if you can reduce it, like, that's okay. That's actually a good thing and a way of caring for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because that's something that I'm not neurospicy. And so that's something that as a coach, I've had to learn and educate myself on how I can tailor this to meet everybody where they're at. Because working out alone is a shit show, let alone adding neurodivergency into it. So I'm happy to hear that we've been able to make this work and that you feel
Yeah.
like you can do this too.
And take advantage of the resources that you have too. Like, I love like the, you know, menu planning and like grocery shopping are things that for me can be so overstimulating. And so I may end up with 3 tubs of sour cream and not the eggs that I went to the store for if I'm not careful. Like, there's just certain things that I gotta, that are really helpful to have tight, again, just to like reduce the mental load. And so if you get resources through a program like this, I found those just so helpful to build on and just like make certain things easier.
Have you noticed a shift in your identity through the years that you've been with the Queer Gym?
I think, in terms of how I see myself, I think for a long period of adulthood, I didn't think of myself as someone who was really active and somebody who was really like, I didn't have a good routine or a good activity that really motivated me that way. And so I think of myself a lot more as somebody who is active and somebody who's like strong. I don't know, those feel like funny things to talk about in terms of how you identify, but like, that feels really cool, and I think it's important for anybody who's looking for non-scale based wins that, like, feeling strong and feeling energetic and, like, sleeping good at night and, like, feeling like I'm an active person. Active looks and feels different for everybody, and, like, active does not come in a certain body shape or size or type. It's just about, like, am I doing things that I know are good for my body? And I think while that was never a huge, it doesn't have to be the primary driver of the way I see myself, like, it's meaningful, and I think, helps me stay in tune with my body and that I'm, like, showing it care. You get one body, right?
That's right. Take care of that shit.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much. I have one more question for you. How would you sum up the Queer Gym?
I mean this in the best possible way. I would sum up the queer gym as tough love, like with like equal emphasis, maybe even like extra emphasis on the love part. Like tough, because like this is always going to be tough. Like showing up for yourself, making time to sweat and do things that are super uncomfortable and getting more comfortable with being uncomfortable is never easy. It's always tough, but doing it with so much love and like doing it surrounded by other people who understand you, care about you, like want what's best for you and people who can show up with you repeatedly, but also aren't willing to say, like, your butt is too high in this moment. I need you to bring it down. I know it's gonna be less comfortable, but that's the point. That's where the growth comes in, and that I think is so important. To give each other that love, but to also push each other. That's why we're here, and it's always done respectfully and in a way that feels really together.
That warms my heart. And yeah, I am excited to continue on this journey with you and see how we continue to both grow and evolve at the Queer Gym. It's been awesome seeing you grow in your consistency and having
Thank
your
you.
shift and, seeing not just different iterations of each other, but every time it's a level up from the previous. So
Totally.
shout out to
It's the
you.
only way to go. What's up? Onward and upward.
All right, y'all. Well, if you want to get some of this tough love, you know what to do. Hit us up, come through, and you too can be a happy, healthy homo.